Strange but true stories. Tales from the light side, the dark side, and the other side. I'm Steve White. It happens to all of us at one time or another in our lives. We're driving on a road that we travel all the time, and at some point our brain zones out and we go on autopilot for a bit. After some time, we click back in and wonder just where we are, but inevitably a familiar landmark will clue us in that we're right where we should be and our destination is still up ahead. But what if you click back in and it all looks unfamiliar? And add to that, you didn't exactly zone out, but have been paying pretty close attention to where you were going. Now that goes from I know exactly where I am to what the heck just happened and where am I in a heartbeat. And that's what happened to not one, but 4 people featured in today's SBT episode, sent to us by a viewer just like you. My wife and I live in the southernmost part of eastern Indiana, right where Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana meet. We were going on a long road trip with another couple, and we had packed our bags the night before and loaded the vehicle with snacks and a variety of soft drinks, juice, and water. But nothing could have prepared us for what happened to us that day. Our lives and our perception of reality were about to change forever. My wife and I have made this trip many dozens of times throughout the last 13 years, and we know the route like the back of our hands. We had even made this trip a few times with the other couple, though they were not as familiar with it as we were. We had an unusually slow start getting on the road that day, so we were very mindful of the time. One little delay after another had already put us behind our intended schedule. Add to that, synchronizing with another couple, and we were pulling out of the driveway about an hour later than we had hoped to. We finally hit the road around 10:15 a.m. We got onto I-275 and headed north, like we always do, because it's the fastest, most direct route to our destination. I-275 makes a huge circle all the way around Cincinnati and crosses through the 3 states. If we had headed south on 275, we would have crossed the Ohio River into Kentucky. That direction can also get us where we were going, but if we went that way, we would either have to drive through downtown Cincinnati or go the longer way around I-275 to connect to I-71. Since we were starting in Indiana and going north on 275, we wouldn't be going through Kentucky at all on this trip. My wife was driving and I was sitting in the back seat behind her. The other guy was sitting to my right and his wife was up front in the passenger seat. I had to do a little catching up on my phone, just some work stuff, no big deal. I'd be done in a few minutes, and I'd be able to join the conversation and enjoy the rest of the trip. I glanced up occasionally just to survey our progress. We didn't have a tight schedule or anything. I was just making mental notes of our late start and where we were. I usually drive, and it felt kind of funny passing off that chore to my wife, but she's made the drive a lot too, even by herself many times. It was nice to be a passenger for once because I usually need to just keep my eyes on the road, and this afforded me the luxury of really looking at things I normally can only glance at. My wife had entered our destination in Google Maps on her phone. It's just a habit we are both in. Even when we know where we're going, it's nice to have the reminders along the way in case we get distracted in conversation, and we like to use it as a gauge to track our progress. Now there's a little stretch of 275 that is shared by 74. We merged onto that and drove the short distance to where 275 and 74 split up again. From the highway, I could see Miamitown Traders Market on our left. It was about 15 minutes from our house. We drive by it a lot, and I have always wanted to go there sometime, but I just never think about it when it's open. Now, this is where things got really weird. I clearly remember that we stayed left on 275. I watched to my right as we passed the exit that allows you to follow 74 into Cincinnati. We take that route a lot too, so we're familiar with it. But I remember studying a stone building on the right, just past the exit. I glance at it every time I drive by it, and this time I got a better look. It wasn't as interesting as I had always thought it would be. We went up a slight grade and around a bend, and my wife suddenly cried out, "Wait, something's not right. Something's wrong with the road." She was baffled. Someone else exclaimed, Yeah, it doesn't look right to me either. I had glanced down at my phone again for a moment, so I didn't know what they meant. I thought maybe there was construction or something. I looked all around and realized I had no idea where we were. They were right. Something was wrong with the road. Really wrong. It was the wrong road. We hadn't gotten off any exits, but somehow we suddenly found ourselves on a road none of us recognized. One of our travel companions said, "I wondered where we were going. I just thought maybe you were taking a different route." But then we saw a little mile marker that confirmed we were still on I-275. That's weird. It says we're on 275, but I don't know where on 275 we are. Only seconds ago, we were on a large 4-lane highway with generous shoulders to pull off on either side and a huge median in the middle, and you could clearly see the cars going the opposite direction on the other side. Now we were suddenly, instantly, on a narrow 4-lane highway with narrow shoulders going up a grade with a narrow median full of bushes so thick you couldn't see the cars on the other side. The road looked really old. There was scrubby grass along the roadside, and all of the trees changed from large, leafy trees that are way off the road to short, shrubby bushes and evergreens right up along the side of the road. We had just been in heavy weekend traffic, but now there were no cars anywhere around us. Not in front of us, not behind us. And then we saw a big green road sign that told us that the Richmond exit was a mile up ahead. Richmond, Kentucky? I don't pay super close attention to every exit along any trip. I usually just retain the names of exits we actually use. So I thought maybe this was one we usually just pass. We still had no idea where we were, so I asked my wife to take the Richmond exit and pull over. She drove down the ramp and turned right. We didn't have to go very far to find a safe place to stop. The off-ramp and on-ramp were easily seen in the rearview mirror. My wife picked up her phone and messed with it a moment. Then she told me her Google Maps was acting glitchy and wanted me to see what was wrong with her phone. I looked at the screen and I couldn't understand where it was indicating our location to be. I re-entered our destination and selected route from current location. "That's weird," I said. "This stupid map thing is telling me to turn down this road and get on 5 Mile Road." I knew that was impossible because 5 Mile Road is around 45 minutes to an hour away on the other side of Cincinnati, across the river in Kentucky. "There's something wrong with your phone," I told my wife. "I'll look it up on mine." I opened the map app on my phone and entered our destination. Again, it told me to go down the road a little ways and get onto 5 Mile Road. Our heads were spinning. How in the world did we get here? "Maybe there's a 5 Mile Road in Ohio too," I said out loud. We were pulled over about 10 to 15 minutes. We drove back down to the on-off ramps. The ramp we came down was to our left, and the on-ramp was to our right. We took the on-ramp and got back on 275, headed the same direction we were going before we got off the road. Within a short distance, we saw the exit for Anderson, Kentucky. Wait, what? We were very familiar with the Anderson Township exit. We had been here dozens of times for work-related activities. We were definitely in Kentucky, and definitely a long way from where we had been just moments ago. And now we knew we were somehow driving the opposite direction on I-275. We left Indiana, driving around the circle of I-275 in a clockwise direction, but we were somehow driving in a counterclockwise direction before we got off that exit. For us to be on the section of highway we were now on would have required that we had gone south on 275, across the Ohio River into Kentucky, past the airport in Florence, Kentucky, crossed under and past I-75, I-71 that could have taken us north through downtown Cincinnati, and we would have passed many other major landmarks that we know very well to get to where we were now driving. There was no way we had just driven here in that amount of time. It was physically impossible. Since I-275 is a huge circle, we were eventually able to get onto 71 as we had originally planned. But we were coming up on the exit from the opposite direction than we would have normally approached it. But how? I looked at my phone as we merged onto I-71. It was 11:15. The four of us couldn't stop talking about the event. We're all Christians, and we immediately felt as if maybe God was sparing us from an accident or something. He had done similar things throughout history as recorded in the Bible, and I had heard of miraculous interventions like this from missionaries. But you would never expect something like this to happen to you. For the next few months, my wife and I would talk about the experience and try to reason it out. We kept feeling that there had to be a natural explanation for this, so we kept retracing our steps over and over. We got out a map and found the exact last place we remembered we were before we popped over to the other side of Cincinnati, and we tried to explain the event away. Maybe we got distracted and followed I-74 through Cincinnati. No, I-74 ends when you get to downtown. We would have had to have merged onto I-75 and driven south, crossed the bridge into Kentucky, and then driven down to Erlanger, where we would have merged back onto I-275. Or we would have had to drive through the city and gone south on 471 and then turned onto 275. But those exchanges are not something you can do by accident. And we would have known we had crossed the river into Kentucky. Well, maybe we drove up and all the way around Cincinnati on 275, realized we didn't know where we were, and then got off at Richmond exit and got back on headed the other way. Nope. That would take a really long time to get there. And we would have had to pass a lot of major mile markers we were familiar with, then past I-71, and then driven for miles past a lot of things that would have felt obviously out of place, and then past the Anderson exit we were familiar with to get to the Richmond exit. That was impossible too. So now, my wife and I have retraced our path several times. We've driven from our house to the places we know we saw, headed in the correct direction. There's the intersection of I-74, then Miamitown Traders Market, the Stone Building, the bend in the road. But no Richmond exit. And we were still in Ohio. We have driven back to the Anderson, Kentucky area several times since then as well. There's simply no way we accidentally got there. No wrong turn could have gotten us to that location, not without our noticing it, and not in that tiny moment of time. The last time we drove through there, my wife said to me quietly, "We really did pop from one side of Cincinnati to the other, didn't we?" "Yes," I admitted. "I don't know what else to make of it." Finally, there's another detail that we simply can't figure out. All four of us remember the Richmond exit. We saw the big sign that said Richmond exit 1 mile. Then we saw the smaller Richmond sign at the exit. It was definitely Richmond. But when my wife and I drove to the exit to try to reconstruct the event, we discovered that the sign now reads New Richmond. This has been another strange but true story sent to us by a viewer just like you. So what do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and thanks to those who have. And if you have a story you would like to share with us, send it to strangebutTrueStories2@gmail.com. Thanks for watching this video. I'm Steve White. Until next time.